G'day guys, and welcome to the second episode of Caleb's Conversation podcast. Today I'm going to be focusing on Marvel and everything Marvel Studios is coming out with on Disney Plus, in theaters hopefully. It's going to be a very exciting time, so if you're a Marvel fan, definitely stick around. It's going to be fun. And I've brought on two guests that I know both love Marvel just as much as I do. Declan and Aidan, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting us.
Our
Great
pleasure.
to be here.
So obviously Marvel has been the biggest cinema blockbusters for the last 10 or so years. It's been huge, the amount of storytelling that they've done and how they've actually pulled it off. So obviously the Infinity Saga is kind of wrapped up and we're moving into phase 4. What did you guys think personally on the MCU as it was going through the Infinity Saga and the movies and stuff? Like, which one was your favorites and that type of stuff?
Oof. Well, I love them because we're all nerds here.
That is true. Geek Nation for the win.
Fuck yeah.
I've always been a big fan of the first Avengers movie. That's always been my personal favorite, just because I watched all the cartoons and that as a kid, like Earth's Mightiest Heroes and that.
Oh,
and then
yep.
to see it all come together in 2012 was pretty exciting. Blew my little grade 7 mind. And then watching it sort of mature with more characters and a lot more story arcs and plot
Was that your
threads.
first Marvel movie that you saw on the big screen?
I think it was the first Avengers movie, yeah.
It's a great one to start with.
I saw all the other ones on DVD and then it was, yeah. I think Iron Man was like the first M-rated movie I saw.
Oh,
so.
wow. Mate, big boys, going into the big boy
I
leagues.
know.
What about you, Aidan?
The Infinity Saga was great. And yeah, I too enjoyed the first Avengers, watching phase 1. You know, obviously starting with Iron Man, which was just brilliant. It's its own piece. It kickstarted an entire span of films that no one ever would have seen coming. And yeah, watching them slowly introduce all the characters to finally come together in the Avengers. That one scene on the bridge where they're all standing in a circle and Jataria like hanging off the buildings and stuff, the music, it was just brilliant to see all that come together.
Yeah, it's definitely an iconic moment in cinema. And you don't necessarily know as a filmmaker when those moments are going to become, or how they're going to become as big as they are. But like, once you show in front of an audience, it's like, I remember even watching like fan reactions from like theaters and stuff inside when you're watching Endgame. And just hearing people just go insane when like Cap gets Mjolnir and stuff like that. It's like,
or in Infinity War when Thor arrived. In
yeah,
Wakanda
stuff
and
like that.
just-
It's
yeah.
just awesome.
Truly insane to see the reactions and just like, hey, that was my reaction too, you know.
What was your first Marvel movie that you saw in theaters?
My first Marvel movie, it would have been Iron Man.
Okay, so you saw way back then.
Yeah.
Wow,
Jeez.
that's awesome. See, I was kind of late to the train. My first Marvel movie that I saw in theaters was Winter Soldier.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I came onto the train quite late.
That's a good one to
Yeah,
start
no,
with.
Oh, it was
So
a great
another
one.
great
I
one to
remember
start
the
with.
ending of that movie where Sam looks to Cap and is like, when do we start? And then the credits roll and I just freaking lost my mind. I was like, holy shit, this is insane. But yeah, because my uncle, he was like big into like comic books and like superhero type stuff. And he was the one that kind of slowly got me into it and like into that sort of geeky culture and stuff like that. And he gave me like, because he had all the Blu-rays and stuff of phase 1, and then I guess Thor, The Dark World, and Iron Man 3 had come out then.
Yeah,
Yes.
we don't talk about the Dark World.
Yes, true.
Or Iron Man 3.
Also, I'll get onto that in a second. But with regards to that, yeah, so he gave me like all the Blu-rays and stuff, including like the Incredible Hulk, which I guess is another reject of the MCU. But anyway,
But I guess not, because William Hurt's back a lot.
true, yeah. Because I guess it's Edward Norton, and he's just like the black sheep of the MCU. But anyway, yeah, so he gave me like all the Blu-rays and stuff, and like I checked them out, watched phase 1 obviously, and then yeah, I went with him and my auntie, and we went and saw like Winter Soldier, and yeah, that was insane. So that was definitely a good first movie to watch on the big screen. And then from then on, I've watched every single one in theaters and really enjoyed it. Actually, not true. Actually, I didn't see Guardians of the Galaxy in theaters.
Really?
I don't know why. I just didn't. But anyway. But yeah, basically everyone especially since phase 3 started. I remember when Civil War came out, that was a big movie for me because I was like, Spider-Man was coming back, and obviously I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. And that was definitely a moment that many people cried out in joy because Spider-Man was in a very tough place after those amazing Spider-Man movies. So the fact that Marvel swooped in, got their sharing arrangement sorted, and were able to bring him back in an awesome way was really good to see.
Yeah, no, the scene where he came in was great, especially for me because Spider-Man was actually what got me interested in Marvel. I remember watching the original trilogy with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. And
Yes.
then that's what got me interested in Marvel, and that's why when Iron Man came around, I was already like heavily invested into what Marvel was doing, even if I didn't know the grand scale it did play out on at that time. But
It's funny you mentioned the original Spider-Man movie, because that was, I feel like, the staple that really kind of set this kind of wave of superhero, the superhero genre going forward into the 2000s. Because obviously Spider-Man came out, the X-Men movies came out, and I felt like, because Kevin Feige used to work on those movies back as like a little associate producer or some sort of intern or whatever. And I felt like he took a lot of notes from being on those sets and being in that environment, and was like, I know what I want to do,
Yeah.
and if we can do it, then
What works and what doesn't work.
exactly, yeah. So when I feel like when he took over the MCU, or I should say when he became president, and back when like the whole Disney Marvel merger was happening, I feel like that's when he really got his hands ready to go and started interconnecting all this stuff, which has been has worked so well over both phase 1, 2, and 3. And I assume it's going to be even more so connected and stuff with regards to Disney Plus and phase 4 and phase 5 and stuff.
I certainly wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
Now, the big topic that I want to kind of like loom over this entire episode is the last MCU thing that we got was Spider-Man Far From Home in July of 2019. So it's been over a year and almost a year and a half since we've got anything Marvel related. WandaVision is obviously the first show that's come out and is going to be leading the way for phase 4. My question is, though, how successful will Marvel be after more than a year without content? Because the Marvel brand, I feel like, has got so big, that it has so many diehard fans, that I feel like that will carry it in the box office especially. But a lot of the casuals and people who haven't seen the movies and the shows and don't live and breathe that stuff on a daily basis, will they be interested, and will they be able to kind of dive back in from a casual perspective? What do you guys think on that? Do you think that the MCU is just going to continue the train forward and be as successful as ever it was? Or do you think it might teeter off?
I don't think it'll teeter off for quite a few years. I mean, its popularity is still at the top, and it'll be hard to gauge it with COVID box office and that. Like, Disney Plus will always... You never really know how streaming shows do, but movie-wise, like, what will Black Widow get at the box office if
It's a good question,
whenever
yeah.
it's released? Like, how it... And even if they do bad, it'll just be chucked down to coronavirus. So I feel like commercially, their success won't be we won't be able to gauge it until like 2023 or something, when everything's back to normal. And by then, we're meant to have like 6 movies or more released by then. So I don't know. I'd be very curious to see the commercial success with the world we live in. But I think it'll still be popular. It'll still be the talk of the internet. It'll still be everyone's favorite sort of franchise and that. But casual fans, like, I always sort of use my dad as an example, like a casual fan. He really enjoys them, but he doesn't care when I'm like, oh, but in the comics they do this. He's
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you mean. My parents are the same.
But it's like, yeah, so I'm like, oh, you got to watch WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki. He's like, oh, I can't be bothered watching, because he doesn't really like watching TV shows. But so it'll be curious to see how much you'll have to watch those shows. Like, I feel like you'll need to watch the movies to know what's happening in the shows, but will you necessarily need to see the shows for the movies? I wonder how Feige will balance that. Like, but then at the same time, with where WandaVision's leading into possibly future Spider-Man, Doctor Strange 2, like, you will need to watch that show to
It'll be
sort of
interesting.
understand.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, because I feel like, because there are so many shows now, I feel like, for, like you said, the casual person, it's a lot of homework to do in order to fully understand the full story.
So just committing yourself to going to the cinema 3 times a year. Now you have to do that like 3 or 4 times a year, plus
the TV
5
stuff.
8-hour shows. Like,
Yeah, it's crazy, because like I think the general thing is that, like, you know, the casual person only goes to a movie theater like once a year. This is obviously before COVID, but like, you know, normally they only go to see one movie a year. Just the casual person. Normally people like us who are like film geeks and like movies and stuff, we go to the theaters like quite a lot. But like, I don't know, it's interesting to think, like, you know, obviously there's like 3 Marvel movies going to get pumped out a year, whether that will still be able to retain the amount of box office and stuff that's been doing previously. But what do you think, Aidan, about with regards to Marvel moving forward?
I certainly don't think it'd be absurd to notice, a decrease in interest or earnings from moving this point onward, because obviously, as you said, it's been over a year now, and but I don't think it would be too great. I think because I mean, like as we saw with Infinity War and Endgame, there is a huge following for these Marvel films, whether it's just casual or a lot of them being, you know, people who got interested way early, whether it was from like the first Iron Man or back in Phase 1. So I don't think Marvel's going to teeter off at all. I think they'll still continue to do well. And obviously, like, I have no idea how many people streamed it or whatever, but from what I've seen on the internet, WandaVision was quite well received by a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, until their next film comes out, I think they have enough to keep people interested so that they're not going to fall off the...
off the bandwagon.
Yeah.
I think it's a good point because I feel like obviously with the TV shows, they can kind of explore these characters that we've seen on the big screen in a different way than what we're used to, and we've definitely noticed that for those who are watching this now. We're recording this after the first 2 episodes of WandaVision have come out, and those first 2 episodes were definitely very weird. What do you guys think, without obviously spoilers, what do you guys think of the first 2 episodes? Did you enjoy it for what it was?
I watched it with a group of friends and we were just like, we were enjoying it, but it was just like, what is it? This is, you know, you don't expect the latest installment from Marvel Studios to be some sitcoms. And it's like, with characters you know, but it's...
In a very different way.
Yeah, it's just... Yeah, it's... I really don't know how to describe it. Like, it's just sort of... It's just enjoyable. It's like a alternate universe almost type thing. It's just like, what's happening here? But it's enjoyable, yeah.
Yeah, I watched it by myself, the first 2 episodes, and yeah, no, I loved them. They were great. But yes, it's, as far as Marvel's content's gone so far, it is very, very quite different.
It'll be interesting to see whether it continues in the route of like kind of balancing that whole sitcom and then larger MCU vibe moving forward, or if it'll be like a drastic switch later on. I'm not too sure, but obviously that's the big front runner. WandaVision's come out of the gates. Wanda and Vision are 2 very obscure characters who have a very strange relationship. I'll say when they first were introduced in Age of Ultron, were you kind of like on that train of like let's see these 2 get together?
I knew it in the comics, but I was like, I'm not feeling it in the movie. And then Civil War, it's like a big jump there, and then Infinity War, it's like they're on holidays banging. Like, I don't know, it's like it was such a drastic jump, and I think it did work for at the end of Infinity War when Vision dies. It's like you did feel that loss, but I wasn't super emotional about it because I'm like, they weren't really sort of like, I don't know, it was a bit. And then to see it now in WandaVision, it's sort of like, yeah, I don't know, it's weird, but it works.
100%
It's weird, but it works.
Well, you got to think about it. There's this woman who is literally dating a robot, so
Yeah.
it's weird for sure. What do you think, Aidan?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page of Declan there. Like watching Age of Ultron, watching them both be introduced. Like again from the comics, I knew, but like watching, I was like, I don't think I see it yet. You know, I was kind of just more excited to see Vision and Scarlet Witch on screen, and then of course, yeah, the jump in Civil War is kind of just like, well, that's happening, I guess. And then yeah, of course, in Infinity War, they're on holidays together, being cute, romantic.
I feel like it worked in Infinity War because they were just like, it's a thing. Like they weren't even like, they weren't stuffing around. They were just
they
like,
totally embraced it.
They're like, this is it. Get on board or not.
They
And
didn't
it's like,
have
okay.
to spend time like building the relationship. Like obviously they did a bit in Civil War, where it's just like kind of just like these 2 might be interested in each other, and then we jump into Infinity War and we're seeing their relationship as it is. So.
And that's the thing with like, obviously when you can only tell like a 2-hour story, you're really confined with the amount of real estate you can give to those smaller characters who have such a big story potential, but like they're not the focus of the main story.
Exactly,
that's where I feel like shows like WandaVision on Disney Plus will be a great opportunity for those smaller characters to really shine and come through. But I think it's interesting that you guys said it took you a bit of while to get on board. I was there straight away. I was like, these guys get together in the comics, yeah, let's freaking do it. I want to see that because it's so weird, and like the whole idea of these 2 characters, because they're like obviously so connected via the Mind Stone. I was like, I feel like there's so much interesting real estate with storytelling you can do there, and I think it was really well done. I thought the way that they slowly did it over the movies, even though obviously you're playing with quite a considerable amount of time between Age of Ultron and then Infinity War. The amount of time between those 2 movies is obviously quite significant, but from the stuff we did see on screen with those characters, I thought it was quite good. And the moment with Wanda and Vision at the end of Infinity War, I was quite emotional for me. I was like, damn, that's because I love Vision. I think he's one of my favorite characters, even though he's very what's the word? With lack of a better term, he's very robotic. So he's very straight to the point. Like in that moment in that moment in Civil War where he's like, when he has that monologue of like, what we do invites challenge and conflict and all that type of stuff. That's like one of my favorite moments because I was like, it's such a great analytical way of looking at what the Avengers have done and the consequences of such a thing. So,
That's a good quote.
But yeah, so WandaVision is obviously the first big thing in Phase 4. I think all three of us are on the same page of we're really enjoying it and we're very keen to see what happens next. Now, the next big question that I have is Black Widow. This is a movie that we've all been looking forward to for a very long time, but it just still hasn't come out. And Kevin Feige and Marvel are eager to get this movie out this year. Do you guys think it's still going to make it to theaters?
I don't know. It's sort of... Well, America's just getting worse with... It all depends on America. Like, they're not going to release Black Widow.
It's unfortunate.
Worldwide.
They are the center of the universe in a lot of respects.
And they're the worst. Hopefully, maybe by the middle of the year, they will get their cases down and then they'll feel more comfortable releasing films in theaters. But, like, you had Tenet, which made 350 mil worldwide in August. And then you have Wonder Woman, which... I don't think it's even made half of that.
No, I'll say December. The drop off for Wonder Woman after its first weekend was very significant. So, Wonder Woman's a different case because that movie was not well received by the vast majority of people. You could also say
Tenet wasn't either.
True.
It was very mixed.
So, just my quick Google search says here that it made $363.1 million US at the box office. So, which is decent,
which is decent for a global pandemic to make. Yeah, but Wonder Woman did really poorly, so it's like...
Also, the thing with that was it had the HBO Max release as well. So I feel like a lot of people who would have gone to the theaters are like, nah.
But still, even overseas, that's just for America. And it is a bit behind Tenet domestically, but worldwide, it's still way behind Tenet. So it's like, what happened overseas, especially seeing overseas, is handling COVID much better. So people just don't feel safe going to the theaters or...
My only hope would be is that the movie's coming out like early May, late April, right? That sort of time frame for us. So, that's a couple months away. Assuming America gets their shit together, I feel like we might be able to get it on time, assuming everything goes good and nothing goes wrong. Again, if it does get delayed, that would be unfortunate because it has been a long time since we've watched a Marvel movie on the big screen.
I think it will. I think May's like we're almost at the end of January. Like that went like that, and I think a lot of movies will get pushed to the end of this year, and then we'll get carryover into 2022.
Do you think it's gonna hit the release date?
No, that's my guess. I don't think it will.
Yeah, I would hazard a guess at no. Obviously, here in Australia, we're lucky enough to be doing
very well.
Certainly quite better than the US. So as you said, you made a good point. Unfortunately, in a lot of circumstances, the US is the center of the universe. A lot of what we'll see with Marvel's release dates and content is to do with them. So
it's just annoying because we here in Australia, like, we can go to the theaters and it's like all smooth sailing, but it's like we can't watch these great movies that are literally sitting on a shelf somewhere waiting to be watched because America wants to make the most amount of money they can, and the rest of the world has to suffer for it.
Yeah, I wonder if Disney will trial doing the Premier Access thing again for Black Widow just in America, but they'll release it theatrically worldwide.
That's a good theory.
Even though America's a huge box office portion, but if they're not going to be better for another year, you can't. I don't know.
I think that they do. Like, I think that would be a good idea if they did something similar with regards to the United States gets the Disney Plus access, and then the rest of the world can go see it in theaters. I just think that they won't do that based off what Kevin Feige said recently with that Disney investors meeting, is that like this movie's coming out in theaters, and he seemed very adamant on that fact. So I feel like, and from his perspective and Marvel's perspective, like you can see why they're so adamant on getting it out in theaters, because a lot of people said, oh, this is going to go to Disney Plus straight away. And then it didn't for like the longest time. And we're like, that's interesting. But I feel like the reason that they're making it go to theaters is because it's a Black Widow movie. Natasha has been in the MCU and Scarlett Johansson's been around for so long. I feel like they're building this moment specifically for her, especially because she's now done with the MCU. Like, obviously, she's dead at the end of Endgame. So it's like, this is going to be her last hurrah. And I feel like they want her last hurrah to be in a big screen with a packed theater in that sort of atmosphere.
Kevin Feige might want that, but when the Disney CEO doesn't see enough money coming in, he'll be like, I don't give a shit about what Scarlett Johansson wants. I want my money. We
could be
invested
right.
hundreds of millions of dollars into this movie.
As you said, there would have been that meeting, and he said adamantly, you know, like, this is going to release in theaters, but between, it's either that or they wait until it's safe to release. And, you know, as brilliant as he's done handling an entire cinematic universe, I think a global pandemic's a bit beyond his reach. So
I 100% agree.
Movies like Spider-Man will get released in theaters, Thor, Doctor Strange, because they're all such massive movies with, like, they're almost Avengers level movies because they have so many characters in them. But movies like Black Widow, Eternals, also, yeah, Black Widow's something. Her story's already done. There's some. Well, yeah, I won't say any spoilers for Black Widow, but yeah, her story specifically is done, and it's like, it's a weird movie to start Phase 4 in the first place.
I agree.
So it could be a good one for Disney Plus.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like she's such a great character, but I feel she works so much better as a side character. The fact that she's now going to be the protagonist of her own movie, I think, is an interesting choice. And again, I feel like the main reason they're doing it is because of Scarlett Johansson. But again, I shouldn't make these accusations before I've seen the movie. They might actually have like a really good story that makes sense once we've seen it. You know, like I always make that comparison to Toy Story 4. When that got announced and the trailers are coming out, everyone's like, why do we need to see Toy Story 4? It ended at Toy Story 3 and it was a great ending. Why are we going to ruin it? And I was like, just wait, see it. And then when Toy Story 4 comes out, I don't know what your thoughts are on that movie, but I loved it because there was a story
really
to be
good.
told and it made so much sense. And then the ending just was perfect for me.
Yeah.
So
I can't comment. I haven't seen Toy Story 4.
all right, that's a fair comment. Well, we'll swiftly move on to the next big Marvel project, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We've actually seen a trailer for this. And what did you guys think of the little footage that we got?
It looks cool. It looks generic, but I mean, it's Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's not going to be groundbreaking. To be fair, I'm really excited for it, but you know, compared to something like WandaVision or Loki, which looks like some Doctor Who wacky type stuff, and then you just got Falcon and the Winter Soldier blowing up shit. It's like cool.
Yeah, no, I was a bit off-put by Declan's remarks just then because I was kind of on a different page, but like
I was going to say I was the same, yeah.
As he said it, it made more sense. Like I'm really excited for it, and I think it's going to be like really, really cool. But you know, as Declan said, from the trailers we've seen, it doesn't look like it has the potential to be so greatly involved with the greater MCU as something like WandaVision or Loki, where there's a lot of, you know, otherworldly things that can have a much greater effect on the rest of the universe, whereas Falcon and Winter Soldier we're going to beat guys up and be very cool.
Yeah.
Like they might have some important villains, and I don't know, maybe we're wrong. But
I think there will be importance. If anything, I think WandaVision will have the most importance to like the next few years over the MCU.
I feel like that's why they're starting with it,
especially with what they're saying about how it'll lead into some of these other bigger Doctor Strange, Spider-Man 3, etc. But I feel like Loki's probably the least going to be intertwined with the MCU because he's sort of doing his own stuff in his own time.
It's an alternate universe,
2012 type thing. I'm still more excited for that one, but I feel like it's less important to watch. Like someone like my dad could skip Loki because I don't think it's going to have much impact on anything. Whereas Falcon and the Winter Soldier probably will, but I was sort of talking about like creatively, it doesn't look the most inspiring, but I'm still going to watch it.
Well, of course. Well, yeah. That's the big thing with everything,
I'm going to be there
right?
day one, sitting on the couch watching it going, yeah.
Well, that's the same thing with like Star Wars fans, right? It's like they always like to including myself. We like to criticize Star Wars and talk about how bad some things are, but we always rock up day one and still, consume the content. But I'll say the two things that stand out to me with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier is when I did see that trailer was the scene where when Falcon is flying through the rocks and stuff, and just like how cinematic and crazy that looked. And I'm just like I just had to snap myself out and be like, this is a TV show. Like this looks like better than Game of Thrones. And Game of Thrones was like the pinnacle of like television. You know what I mean, with regards
Yeah.
to visual effects and stylistic nature. Do you disagree with
I
that?
got to see a bit more to see if it. I'm just saying, as bad as the last season was, it's like the last season was pretty damn cinematic.
well,
at
yeah,
Game of
yeah.
Thrones. I got to see
But
a
that's
bit
what I'm
more of
saying,
Falcon
like-
and Winter Soldier to compare.
Okay,
to
well, that's fair. But I feel like what I'm trying to say then is, I guess,
just off the bat, it's
the
already
visual
expensive.
effects always, look, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. It already has
Like,
that sort of big box office, cinematic type.
Like
money
season 1 of
behind
Game
it.
of Thrones versus season 1 of Falcon and the Winter Soldiers
Exactly.
will be Falcon and the Soldier will be much more expensive looking, but yeah.
And the other thing that stood out to me, or I should say, has stood out to me from the news that I've heard, that hasn't been released publicly yet. But obviously, there's a character that they're introducing, and I assume you guys are aware of this, who's going to be playing like a Captain America type character, who's not
Oh, yeah.
Falcon. I forget the name of the character off the top of my
US
head.
agent.
Yeah, he's going to be like some guy. So my thing is that I am speculating is I feel like the government is going to come in and be like, the next Captain America is this guy. And then Sam and Bucky are going to be like, but Cap gave me the shield.
Yeah.
I've got the mantle. And then it's going to be like two warring ideologies of like the government using that title and then Sam, who deserves it, trying to war with that and then, trying to overcome that sort of internal struggle.
And then-
So that's what is most appealing to me about the show is
Yeah.
this whole sort of political aspect and Sam coming into his own as not only the Falcon, but now as Captain America.
And then you also got Zemo in it as well, and if maybe he's controlling US agent and
That would be cool.
he's got his.
I'm just
fingers in the
glad he's
government.
going to wear the bloody purple ski mask.
Yeah.
It looks so ridiculous, but I'm so excited. So
Yeah.
now, obviously, we've mentioned Loki, and you said that you're very excited for this. I am on the other spectrum. I'm not excited for this. Well, not I am, but like it's one of my least anticipated things. Only because of what you mentioned, I feel like it's going to have the least ramifications over the main story that we're telling.
Yes and no. I just thought of something from the trailer. They have shots like the big sculptures in the background of the Time Variance Agency, and they have Kang the Conqueror's face.
Oh, really?
So that might also set up Kang the Conqueror for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Yes, that's
I was
correct.
wondering if you two remembered that scene in the trailer when you're saying there'd be no greater ramifications.
Yeah, I know.
was
I
like,
was-
they seem to have forgotten something here.
I'll say I don't remember that off the top of my head, but I guess you're right. Maybe
Yeah.
see this is the biggest thing that interests me is that because it is set in an alternate universe, and we obviously know that Doctor Strange is going to be playing with the multiverse. Maybe it does play more in than what a lot of people are expecting. Because I just was like, oh, it's an alternate universe thing. Loki's going to do some fun stuff, and it'll be a cool show to watch, one and
Yeah.
done sort of thing. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it does tie
Well,
in a lot more.
they're already talking about season 2 for that.
Oh, really?
Because the showrunner of that's coming back for that. But
Ooh.
they haven't talked about season 2 for WandaVision or Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I feel like those might have more connection to the greater MCU because that'll lead into, if Falcon does become Captain America at the end, maybe he'll jump back into the movies and Wanda and Vision have their thing going on that'll lead into Doctor Strange and that. Whereas Loki, they might sort of tease and roughly set up Kang the Conqueror, but it might be fully up to, like, it'd be weird if Loki showed up in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It could happen, but like if that does happen, then it'll be like, wow, they really do expect you to watch these shows to keep
To
up.
really
and,
understand, yeah.
and, my dad might not watch Loki, and then all of a sudden Loki rocks up in Ant-Man and the Wasp 3, and he's like, what? And then and that's where you could lose a lot of casual fans because they just feel so behind. And as soon as you start feeling behind, you just shut off. And he'll
Yes.
come back for Avengers 5 or something, or another Thor movie, but he might not be as
Yeah, one thing you said there that I agree with is that a lot of casual fans might turn off. I feel that's what's happened with the Fantastic Beasts franchise. After Crimes of Grindelwald, that movie was so dense in obscure mythology
yeah.
that a lot of casuals were like, I don't understand this.
Like, I'm a Harry Potter casual, so
Yeah,
as soon
same,
as,
same.
and when they were going on about stuff in like the end scene where they're all talking about names and family members, I was like, I'm lost, I'm out. Like,
yeah,
it's
well,
just,
what I find interesting about that movie, and we'll talk about this briefly, is that movie was so poorly received, even from the Harry Potter fans. So it was like, it wasn't even like on a Marvel level where these Easter eggs and like references are so great because if you know it, you know it, but if you don't, then it's not that big a deal. Like even the Harry Potter fans were like, I don't understand any of this. So that's what I think Marvel does so well is that they have little references here and there to the comics or to television shows, and then that makes the universe so
Yeah.
much more richer.
You know, I'm a Harry Potter fan myself, so you know I went and watched Crimes of Grindelwald, and I'll be honest, like yeah, no, it wasn't great, and you know I can certainly appreciate the perspective of you know like a casual Harry Potter fan coming and watching this, and as Declan mentioned, that end scene where they're just like listing a bunch of names and like family members, and a lot of that's going to go right over you know the average viewer's head, and you know like obviously like I understood it and I got the importance, but I think as a whole the film was just poorly executed. I think.
I agree.
It had the
Fucking
potential,
boring.
but yeah,
It was
just
weird 'cause
very poorly. Executed.
I just remember walking out of the theater and being so confused, but like I just assumed maybe the Harry Potter fans understood it. And then when the internet reactions came out and it was just so not the case, I was like, oh, maybe I was justified in feeling the way that I did. But
you know, we understood it, we just didn't like it.
exactly, yeah. Now, next big Marvel movie that comes out after Black Widow is, I believe, Shang-Chi.
Eternals, I think.
Or is it Eternals? All right, well, I think they're coming out the same year, right? Black Widow,
Who
Eternals,
knows anymore?
Shang-Chi.
It could be anything.
Anyway,
Anyone's
so
guess.
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Now, this is a movie that
Filmed in Australia.
True, yes. I think down in
Sydney.
Sydney, right? I think they're going to be filming the Thor movie there as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be cool. But yeah, what do you guys think of Shang-Chi? Because like, I don't really know much about this hero, but I know the mythology, and if they dive into it, then I think that'd be really
Well,
cool.
They've got the Mandarin in there, and if they're doing the Makluan rings properly and stuff like that, and I'll be cool. That'll be cool. As a Iron Man Armored Adventures fan.
Yeah, Iron Man Armored Adventures was great, which is. You mentioned earlier that Iron Man 3 is another film we don't talk about, and obviously, like having watched Armored Adventures when Iron Man 3 came around, I'll admit when I watched the film, I was incredibly disappointed. But actually, like I still didn't mind Iron Man 3. You know,
I enjoy it for what it is. It's just that one Mandarin thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because like Ben Kingsley was so good in the first half of that movie when he's like being serious and ominous. It's like
Yeah.
because I was
What a
legit
waste.
scared of him, and then they do this like hilarious.
My name's Trevor.
Dumb. Yeah, it's just so dumb. It just completely undercut that villain because what was the other guy? The fire
Aldrich
guy.
Killian.
That's it.
Played
Aldrich
by
Killian.
Guy
It was like,
Pearce.
why is he here?
He was.
I am the Mandarin.
But yeah,
I-
like
I hated him as a character, not even as a villain. I was just like, I don't want him on screen right now.
exactly, yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, like, despite the letdown, it was still like I enjoyed it. It showed that you know Tony doesn't need his suit
To be a
and,
hero.
Yeah, it's told the story well enough. It wasn't the story we were expecting or you know wanted perhaps, but it was still well done.
So do you think that a lot of that Iron Man mythology that we've seen very teased upon with regards to the Mandarin, do you think that's going to be very prominent in Shang-Chi, or is it going to be like this? Shang-Chi's going to be like this,
I
like
think so
wholly
because the
different
title
thing?
is like Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, so that'll clearly be a big aspect of the film, I think. But yeah, I really don't know anything about Shang-Chi himself, so
My one hope for this movie is that I just hope that it's a super badass, kick-ass action kung fu movie, because that's what I hoped for the Iron Fist show on Netflix, and I so did not get that. So hopefully that this
don't
movie.
speak about Iron Fist.
No, we-
Sorry, I apologize for bringing it up. But no, I hope this movie is just like a really badass kung fu movie. Like that's what I hope.
I've heard some people say it's like a Mortal Kombat ripoff in a sense, that there's like big arena sort of stuff in the movie, so that could be cool.
Again, it's hard to speculate when we haven't seen or really know any of the story details
Yeah.
yet.
I am hoping they do dive into it though. They almost owe it to us after I don't know if you guys remember the one shot film they released, All Hail the King.
Yes, yes, that was really good too.
Yeah, no, that was like really. I mean, watching that, I was like really excited, and you know, obviously, it's been quite a while since that was released, and now here we are with Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, and
Do you think Ben Kingsley's going to be in this movie?
No.
I
They're not
I-
going to reference it at all.
I wouldn't bet on
Maybe.
it. Maybe a cameo at best.
Maybe
but,
I'd agree with referencing, yeah.
Because like that scene, like, kind of sets up this movie in a way. Like it's like the Mandarin wants his name back. So it's like I feel like it'd be funny if the opening scene of this movie is Ben Kingsley on the floor and then the real Mandarin just like kills him or something. That'd be hilarious. I don't know if they do something silly like that, but like I don't know. I'm not sure if they will reference that little one shot that
Even
is
if
quite
the-
obscure to the MCU, but
even if the opening segment to the film before like the credit title is just
prelude,
that,
yeah.
the one All Hail the King.
oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I think it would make sense for them to reference it, but then again, I don't know how many people are even aware of it to even understand the reference. But again, the MCU is so vast. I'm sure there's fans out there that are more than they know more about it than the casuals. But Shang-Chi is a movie that I'm looking forward to. I'm very excited for, but again, don't know enough about it to really speculate on too much. Another movie that I have no idea really anything about is The Eternals, because I feel like this is very similar to Guardians of the Galaxy in the way that it's like, this is a movie in space with these weird characters that are a ragtag team.
But apparently it's set on Earth a lot,
I have
but
no
they're
idea.
Thousands of years old. I don't know.
The only thing I know from this is I've seen that one concept image of
Yeah.
like them
I'm
in
like-
this blue atmosphere. It's like, I don't know.
I'm like, they have a cool cast. That's all about all I know.
Exactly, yeah. So, Aidan, do you have any sort of thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I've seen a lot of the casting, and like, I'm excited in that sense. They've done a good job there. I haven't seen the concept image that you're referring to, so my knowledge of this is almost zero.
Okay,
But,
fair enough.
I mean, they've done well with everything else so far, but so yeah, I'd say I'm excited. I'm sure it'll be interesting.
Well, I feel like, again, linking back to what I was saying earlier with Guardians of the Galaxy, that was a franchise that, or those were a bunch of characters that no one knew anything about. It came out, and now everyone knows the name Star-Lord and Gamora and Groot, especially Groot. And that thing is commercialized to the nth degree. Now, this is something that I am a bit confused by. Is Spider-Man 3 coming out before Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness?
Yes.
Why? Because if what we've heard is true, how does this make sense?
I think the idea is that
Again, I don't know if we should even mention
know.
what we know, because I don't know if it's a spoiler or not. Because I've heard these things, I'm like, I wish I didn't know that. So maybe if you're watching this and you don't know the certain things that have been leaked, we won't mention it here. But let's just say Kevin Feige has publicly said that this links into Doctor Strange and WandaVision. And
it's meant to be
Spider-Man
like
linking
a
into that.
three-part story kind of goes from WandaVision to Spider-Man to Doctor Strange.
I just don't understand how this Spider-Man movie links in at all to that, based off how the previous one ended.
I think that it'll sort of introduce a multiverse and all the crazy shit going on in Spider-Man, and then Doctor Strange 2 will be like the Avengers type movie to try and fix it and combat it.
Okay. Maybe Doctor Strange is a lot more vast in scale than I was anticipating.
I
yeah.
think that's why Scott Derrickson left, because it just turned into like a Captain America
Oh, really?
Civil
Is that
War
what you
where-
think?
And so that's why they got Sam Raimi, because it's going to be a much bigger movie.
Sam Raimi.
Wow, that's actually interesting. That's an interesting take, because I assumed the reason he left was because the movie's going to be like a horror movie, right? And Scott Derrickson is a horror director, and I assumed the reason he got fired was because he was making a horror movie, and Kevin Feige was like, "This is too scary. We can't do this. This is too much." And he's like, "Well, if it's too much, then I'm out." That's my assumption. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're correct in assuming that.
I think originally Phase 4 was a little bit different, but then Marvel is known for when DC announces something, they then do it first. Like, the Russos have said Captain America Civil War was never a thing. Like, it was that, and then when DC announced Batman v Superman, then they beat
Beat him
Civil
to the punch.
War.
Yeah.
DC announced that they were doing Flashpoint stuff. Kevin Feige's like, okay, well, WandaVision does do this, so then it could lead into Spider-Man 3, which can lead into Doctor Strange, and I think that's why Scott Derrickson dropped out when he realised that Feige was switching course. I feel like originally, as you saw at the end of Far From Home, they were setting up Secret Invasion as more of the next big arc, but it seems like they're trying to fit in Multiverse first and then lead back into Secret Invasion a bit more, just to beat DC to the punch.
That's a fair take.
Because at the end of the day, it's whoever gets there first. Like, John Carter was around before Superman, but everyone remembers Superman. And when people think about Multiverse, they'll think about what Marvel did before DC. Feige wants to beat them to the punch.
I say, what's that saying is, if you can't be, I forget the saying, but basically, if you're first in, then everyone's going to remember you. You might not even have to be the best, but if you're first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do it first, do it worst.
Well, that's one perspective, yes. I'll say DC has had a very poor track record.
And I feel like with Disney
their
Plus sort of
movies.
starting up and Feige realizing how much more he can do, he's sort of like, plans changed a bit, and then COVID's given him more time to redo stuff, and
Yeah, I feel like
that's my prediction.
well, now that because they have had so much more time to think about the stuff, I feel like there's no real excuse for bad script writing or any of that type of stuff. So we'll see. Now, another show that's coming out, Marvel Studios' first animated show, What If? Now, this is something I'm really excited for because I'm like, an animated show that like takes one thing from one of the movies, changes it, and then we get like an alternate story on that one thing. I think it's really interesting. So are you guys actually excited for this?
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to like sit down, and it's probably like shows like WandaVision and Falcon and like that, you know, you sort of, or for me at least, I'm like, oh, I want to watch it with my friends, and like, you know, it's like an event almost. Whereas like, What If, I'll sort of sit by myself and just watch.
I feel like, yeah, it'll be
oh,
inconsequential.
cool.
Yeah,
It'll just be its own little thing.
A fun-
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Like, it'll be something that, you know, if I don't need to watch week to week. Like, you know, if I'm busy one weekend, I'll be like, oh, I'll just watch it on Monday instead of Friday night after watch it.
yeah,
type thing.
exactly. No, I agree.
Yeah, no, I'm certainly excited. As Declan said, not in the same sense as to watching, you know, WandaVision or Loki, because, you know, ultimately it's inconsequential, but, you know, like it should be a good bit of fun, you know.
Yeah.
Certainly to like watch alone and just be like, oh, so like
Yeah.
That could have been
that's
cool
how
if
they
that
would have
happened,
played it
yeah.
out if they did it differently, you know. So
Like to casual fans, they like my dad will not sit down and watch What If, but people like us will be like, oh yeah,
Sit
watch
down,
that.
consume it, and think,
Yeah.
what if?
yeah.
Yeah, because the two storylines that they've promoted the most from this show is obviously Peggy Carter becoming Captain Carter because she takes the super soldier serum instead of Steve. Now that's a cool concept. I'm really excited to see her in more of a beat 'em up type role. That'll be cool. But the other thing, obviously, that we've seen is that that there's an Iron Man suit back then. So are we to assume that Howard creates a suit for Steve? That would be cool if they do that. So who knows? And then the other one that they've advertised quite prominently is Black Panther, or I should say T'Challa, is picked up by the Guardians of the Galaxy and becomes a Ravager.
Yeah.
So that's a weird one. Like I did not expect that at all.
Yeah.
Quite odd.
That is very odd, right?
Yeah, no, going from like, hey, what if Peggy became Captain America? To what if Black Panther was abducted by aliens?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like one's more like, oh yeah, one's more like, that's random.
But again, that sort of randomness is what makes it most intriguing, I feel like, because it might go in a direction that you would not expect that I feel will lead to entertainment. So I think that's the reason they're doing this show is, again, going off that idea of what they did in the comics of like taking one aspect and then twisting it in a new direction and then just telling this one-off story that people will enjoy as like a one-off thing. So, but What If is definitely a show I'm looking forward to, and hopefully the animation is quite good because from what we've seen thus far, it looks quite good, but
Yeah.
we'll wait and see. Now, this is a show that I have mixed feelings on, Hawkeye. What do you think, Declan, about Hawkeye?
I don't. Well, there's also they're trying to set up the young Avengers in the MCU. They've recast Ant-Man's daughter in Ant-Man 3 with a more experienced actress. So, and she's meant to be sort of one of the leaders of the young Avengers. Kate Bishop is. So they're sort of they're setting up lots of different arcs. Like, you know, the Infinity Saga was it's all leading to Thanos, whereas like Phase 4 it's like Multiverse, Secret Invasion, Young Avengers, Kang. It's like got a bunch of different
There's a lot of story
things
strands.
starting up, and yeah, so I think it'll be important to watch because Kate Bishop's going to become an important character. It could also be interesting to, if people are interested in Hawkeye, I think it will develop his character significantly and give him something interesting to do for once. It'll be interesting, but I'm curious to see how that will do with like casual fans because like my dad, I'm just going to use my dad constantly as an example of a casual fan. It's like he doesn't really want to watch super kiddie sort of stuff within the MCU, so he wasn't the biggest fan of like something like Homecoming, which I disagree with him. But anyway, but like something like Young Avengers, even if they set them all up on Disney Plus and then make a Young Avengers movie, I don't think he'll want to watch that. So I'll be curious to see how that'll do with casual fans. But yes, that'll stem from what do I think about Hawkeye? Yeah, I'll watch it.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest. I had deadass completely forgotten that it was going to be a TV show until you mentioned it just then. But look, that's not to say that I'm not interested in what they'll do with it. You know, it's Marvel content, so I'm certainly interested. I wouldn't say that I'm excited. But at all, but yeah, definitely interested to see what they do.
Literally, the only thing that has me excited for this show is that Haley Steinfeld is going to be playing Kate Bishop. That's the only thing, because I really have liked her previous work, and I think she's the perfect choice for that character. So, assuming it all works out well, and they have Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld have really good chemistry on screen, I feel that that's what the show will. I think that'll be the biggest strength for the show.
Is their chemistry, yeah.
But the story itself, I feel like it is a setup show. I don't feel like the story is integral, even though we will be seeing more of Hawkeye's time as Ronin before Endgame. That might be interesting, but again, I'm not super excited for this, but I'm a Marvel fan, and I agree with you, Aidan. I'm going to check it out for sure.
Yeah.
Now, another show coming out, Miss Marvel. Any thoughts on this?
Not interested.
I say I don't know anything about this character except for the fact that she is like a Pakistan girl who lives in America and has stretchy powers.
Yeah.
That's the extent of my knowledge.
And she's a big fan of Captain Marvel.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
But I feel like we've only just been introduced to Captain Marvel, so to already sort of be expanding her universe so quickly seems a bit... I'm still trying to get used to her. She's only really had one movie and then showed up for a second in Endgame to save the day. And it's already weird that we're already going in and expanding her universe, because Miss Marvel, the little girl, she's going to be in Captain Marvel too. That's already been confirmed.
Yes.
So it's... Yeah, I don't know. It feels a bit too early to sort of be introducing her, in my opinion. I'm not... That's probably one of the shows I'm least excited for, just because as a white dude, I'm not really that interested in watching a little girl with stretchy powers save the day.
That's more than fair.
It doesn't interest me. Whereas like something like Hawkeye, I'm like, yeah, Kate Bishop's cool, and she's also got Hawkeye's her sidekick kind of. It's like there's something relatable in each of the other shows, but for me,
yeah, with Miss Marvel, I feel like the thing that I think is most intriguing about the show is that, yeah, like you said, that Captain Marvel connection. Because obviously that character was introduced in the Avengers game that came out recently. So I feel like that might be...
Which bombed, by the way, so...
I haven't played it. I still want to check out the story because I'm intrigued to see what they do. But again, I did hear it didn't do very well. But that was the first introduction of that character to the mainstream people.
Exactly.
So,
and it bombed, so it's like...
Well,
is there any interest
can you blame
Miss
that on
Marvel?
Miss Marvel, though? Or do you think it's just that game wasn't very good?
Probably that, but still.
Fair enough. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like this character has potential, but again, not enough people know about why she's important to the MCU just yet.
Like,
I feel like it's more set up for Young Avengers stuff.
Like, I mean, I'll watch it and I'll probably like enjoy it because it's MCU stuff, but I don't think I'll be like getting keen. Oh, this Friday I'm going to watch Miss Marvel. I'll be like, yeah, I'll watch it on like Sunday or Saturday or whatever. Like, it's not.
Declan says all this, and Miss Marvel's gonna be the best show out of all the MCU things.
And
just watch.
I hope it is. I hope I get like blown away, and I'm like, damn, this is a great show, A+. But I don't think it will.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page with Declan there as with the Hawkeye one. This is another one that kind of flew under my radar. Like, I heard about it, and then like haven't proceeded to give it much thought. So again, I'm certainly interested to see what they do with it, but I'm not waiting for it. I'm not excited, but yeah.
Now, something I'm sure has been on all of our minds because it's so prominently talked about, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This is obviously a movie that I feel like is an epicenter for a lot of these big stories that are coming together. Why do you think that the sequel to Doctor Strange is going to be such a large-scale crossover event?
I mean, you got to look at it as it's not like it's Doctor Strange and then Doctor Strange 2, because like with these films, it doesn't work that way. You have to go and watch each individual film because each is its own piece in like a singular story. And obviously we wrapped up with the Infinity Saga, but we're still in the same universe, so the same rules apply. We got to go and watch each individual film. So like, obviously it's going to be vastly different, but it's not like Doctor Strange and then Doctor Strange 2, it's Doctor Strange and, however many films it's been now in between. And obviously it's like, we've obviously seen a massive build-up in, like, the proportion of events that play out. So, I think between the first one and the second one, for people who are interested in viewing Marvel films properly and go and see each one, I don't think it's going to be too drastic a change to be like, this is way too different from the last one.
I think they're just sort of, these solo movies are just getting bigger each time. Like Thor: Love and
Becoming
Thunder
more
is a
interconnected,
Thor
yeah.
and Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Doctor Strange is a Avengers type movie. I'm sure Guardians of the Galaxy 3 will also then have Thor in that as well. Captain Marvel 2 will have Miss Marvel, and it'll probably be part of the Secret Invasion. Like, they're all big events in their own. It is a part of me is like, oh, I would have loved to see a Scott Derrickson sequel horror sort of.
I really wanted to see that.
Like,
But
still big
Sam Raimi, I
scale.
think, is the next best choice. So.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
We love Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, a part of me wants to see these sort of smaller solo movies, and then you have your big Avengers movie every 3 years. But
Maybe we can petition for a what if episode of Doctor Strange. What if it was directed by Scott Derrickson?
That would be interesting.
But yeah, I think just the way the MCU is sort of building and the way Kevin Feige's setting everything out, it had to be that big. And
My theory is that how the phase 1, 2, and 3 were all leading to Thanos. I feel like the next couple phases are all going to be leading to multiverse drama. I feel like the multiverse stuff will be the next Thanos level event that will lead to some sort of Avengers movie
as I
or
said,
whatever.
like, they're setting up Kang, who's meant to be a huge villain. That for Ant-Man and the Wasp 3, I'm like, Kang as the what?
Yeah, I agree.
He's
It's
an
slightly
Avengers
strange.
villain. You've got, and then Secret Invasion. I feel like that's a big event that you set up as well. But maybe they're gonna slow build that for like 10 years as well. They've got a lot. I feel like Multiverse will be the next big thing, but I think that'll be wrapped up within 2 years.
Okay.
Well, see, that's like one of the questions that I have in my head most of the time is, like, as you've said, they've set up like 4 different things for them to pursue now here in Phase 4. But as nicely as the Infinity Saga was all wrapped up, it was beautiful. It like ended well. Like there's still a few loose ends that like were never closed. Look at the end of Doctor Strange. Mordo came in, said he started his whole vendetta against sorcerers. He's like, we have too many, we need to start getting rid of them. So
I suppose solo movies, there's always the continuing thread, but I guess a threat that affects everyone in the universe. For 10 years it was just Thanos, but for the next sort of, it'll be Kang's a time traveling super threat. Secret Invasion, Skrulls, that affects everyone. Multiverse affects everyone. Like, you've got at least 3 big things compared to just one that was Thanos that sort of affects everyone.
And then there was the second Guardians film where they start making Adam. Like, are we
Warlock,
going to see something out
True,
of that?
yes.
Exactly.
That's a very good
So that-
point.
yeah.
Like I said, like the Infinity Saga was wrapped up perfectly, and like, the Endgame was such, a beautiful way to like end things. But yeah, no, like those stories that we start to saw born out of the end of those 1 or 2 films, like, are we going to see that come to fruition in Phase 4?
Yeah, because
I guess, like you've said, they've already got 4 things for them to pursue. Do they have time to go and wrap up these loose ends they
like
made?
the Mordo thing you mentioned, it's like they're not. I don't think they're ever going to touch on that.
Well, that's what I was questioning at the start. Was like, why is this so large scale? Because my assumption was that the sequel would be a Doctor Strange versus Mordo film because they're arch enemies in the comics. And I thought the first movie excellently set up those 2 characters and their 2 perspectives and their ideals. So I was excited to see that continue into the sequel and then see them face off. But now I don't think we're necessarily going to get that, even though he is coming back as a character.
He's
so
returning. So
I thought the same thing, watching the first Doctor Strange, that credit sequence. I was like, okay, so he'll be the big bad in, the second one. And obviously we've come a long way since then, and it's looking like that's most definitely not going to be the case. But yeah, I mean,
I'll be pretty upset if they like wrap that up as just like a small nuisance for Doctor Strange. Like, he has a fight with Mordo at the start, and then
he's just like killed off in a 5-minute fight.
Mordo just becomes Loki, where like in Thor: The Dark World, he just sort of becomes his awkward sidekick sort of stuff.
yeah, I don't want that.
And then
Yeah.
backstabs him again or whatever. It's just like that's one route you could go.
I certainly think that he's been developed as too strong a moral character to do something like become his like weird sidekick or something and then betray him. He's a very like strong-willed individual, and he's certainly on the wrong path, but he's very set in his morals. So
I feel like that's what Scott Derrickson set up, but whether Kevin Feige and Sam Raimi have different plans for him.
maybe I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to see an epic wizard fight. That's all I care about.
I'm sure we'll get one.
Yeah.
You won't get any Fantastic Beasts because it sucks.
Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, we all love Thor, but he's getting a 4th movie. Yay or nay?
Yay.
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 Okay.
I'm a big fan for like round numbers, like a perfect trilogy. But in Thor's case, I mean, he's only just getting started. Like, he's got so much good stuff left. You've got Christian Bale as the villain. You've got the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah, Christian
in it.
Bale being in it. Oh, that
Like,
is the dopest thing I've heard. That's
Taika
so
Waititi
good.
back. Like, I want a Thor trilogy from just Taika Waititi. Like,
That'd be beautiful.
That would be, yeah. The biggest thing that stands out to me about this film is that they're bringing Jane back, and Natalie Portman will be reprising her role. Now that, to me, see, I'm very conflicted on this because I am anticipating that the storyline that they're going to go with is the Lady Thor storyline from the comics. And for those who are familiar with that, they know that Jane Power gets the powers of Thor, but she also simultaneously has, I think it's breast cancer, right?
yeah.
And basically, whenever she activates her powers, she becomes immortal, but she is Lady Thor. But then when she deactivates her powers, she's Jane Foster, who's dying of cancer. And the whole dilemma there with that story is, who am I and who should I be? Should I be the hero Lady Thor, or should I be, the hero Jane Foster? And I feel like if they go with that might be a really interesting story. However, my thing that is holding me back on getting fully excited with this is that the chemistry between Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman in those first 2 Thor movies was not good, and my least favorite aspects of those 2 films. So I'm a bit skeptical, but I'm excited for the potential if they do it right.
There's also rumor that it could be a multiverse Lady Thor, and they might not do that whole breast cancer storyline.
Oh, okay.
And she'll come in because you've got the whole thing about what's her name, Valkyrie becoming the leader of Asgard now. So what's that threat? Is Christian Bale trying to fight Thor and Natalie Portman, or is he trying to fight Valkyrie and Asgard? And then you also got the Guardians of the Galaxy in the mix. And you're not going to fly out Chris Pratt and all that to Australia to do all this quarantine to have like a small role. They're probably here for a decent role. So like,
Yeah,
what's
it's a good
happening
point.
with that? What
Also,
direction is that movie going in?
As much as they're two different things, with the breast cancer thing, they've kind of, with obviously, like, I know we don't talk about it, but Thor: The Dark World, we've already seen the whole like storyline. Oh, like Jane's sick and dying.
Yeah.
And obviously it's isn't the same as, like a whole, or like, do I stay a hero or do I be Jane? But yeah, they've done the thing where like Jane's sick, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did what Declan mentioned, the whole like multiverse thing where she's just a different version of Thor.
That's an interesting take. I hadn't thought about that. I was more set down that path of what they did in the comics, but again, with all this multiverse stuff, that would make sense if they go in that direction. Now, to my knowledge, that is the conclusion of Phase 4, all those things that we've just mentioned now. So I'm going to go through rapid fire with Phase 5 and beyond, because there's so much of it. So, She-Hulk, yay or nay?
I'm keen because it looks like it's going to have like William Hurt's, General Ross, Tim Roth's confirmed
As
to come
Abomination?
back. Mark Ruffalo's confirmed to come back. Like, it's sort of, it could be pretty cool. And then it's rumored that Charlie Cox is back as Daredevil in
Well,
Spider-Man
yes,
3.
but that's also a thing. Like, I feel like he might actually work a lot better in a She-Hulk show.
But then there's also rumors Kristen Ritter's being cast in She-Hulk
Ooh.
because there's similar.
As Jessica Jones, yeah.
Because one of the Marvel producers confirmed that they have like a board of all the characters in their
Yeah,
head
no,
office,
the
and they
Russos
said
talked
the
about it, yeah.
Netflix characters are there.
No, the Russos have talked about that
Yeah.
explicitly. Yeah, they said that they had like a little sport playing cards with all the Avengers characters.
Yeah.
They had them up on a whiteboard, and they was basically saying which characters are going to be paired up with here, which characters can we use, how many characters can we have in a scene. And they said that, I think in whatever interview it was, that the Defenders characters were considered, but they decided against it because there's already too much going on.
Yeah.
And I actually agree with that reasoning. And I think it would have been strange if those specific characters showed up at the end of Endgame. So I understand the reasoning, but I think now that the expiry date has ended on those Netflix shows and they can be used again, I think you need to bring in at least some of them. Daredevil,
You've got the
Jessica Jones,
multiverse
Luke
now,
Cage.
so you can just pluck them out and take the ones you want. Daredevil, Jessica
the thing
Jones,
with
Punisher.
The thing with She-Hulk is I feel like because she is a character that deals with superhero legal cases, I think it's a no-brainer to bring in some of these characters who, like Jessica Jones or Luke Cage, who have done some superhero stuff and been on the bad receiving end of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like if she's like defending them or whatever, that would be pretty cool to see. But yeah, I just think they need to bring in at least some of those characters, because if they bring John Bernthal back, that would make me the happiest man alive, because I love that man. He is so good at what he does.
Yeah,
I love everything he's in.
Seeing both Daredevil and the Punisher return would be amazing. But
Yeah.
I guess we'll see.
I think there'll be a lot of fun characters in She-Hulk, but it's also apparently going to be like 30 minutes sort of
Yes, that's confirmed.
comedic sort of lawyer show. That's the tone they're apparently going for, which is similar to the comics, but I don't know. I kind of wish it'd be a bit more serious, but
Again, if they go in a similar route to what Daredevil did with their legal cases, I think that'd be really cool. But then again, to establish it as something different, they might go down a more comedic route. But either way, I'm excited for it just because of the cast, the characters, and the potential people that could show up. That's why I'm excited for it.
I just hope they have the budget to do some Hulk action with like She-Hulk, Mark Ruffalo's Hulk,
Yeah.
maybe Red Hulk with General Ross, and maybe Abomination, because he is confirmed to be back, but will he still be Abomination? It's like you've got four creatures
Four
running
big
around.
creatures,
Like,
yeah.
If they have the money to do it, it could be really cool, that
Fuck
show.
yeah, that'd be so cool.
It'd be dope.
So next, Black Panther 2. This is a tough one because obviously the unfortunate passing of Chadwick Boseman was a devastation for us all, and they've confirmed that they're not recasting the character. So does this mean that Shuri's going to take up the mantle?
Apparently there's going to be a female and a male Black Panther sort of sharing the mantle. Mm-hmm. That's one rumor.
Okay.
Will that be Shuri and M'Baku? Don't know. Or are they going to get some entirely new character with the existing other cast, but a new lead? I really have no idea. Like, I don't have any of my own theories. I'm sort of just waiting to see how they handle it. I'm glad that Ryan Coogler seems to be sticking around, because
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm just sort of curious to sit back and see what they do, because it's a very awkward situation.
I'm on the same page as Declan there. Haven't really thought of too many theories of what they're going to do. Just interested to see how they handle it and move forward.
It's weird because it's like Shuri and M'Baku were such side characters, so obviously the B characters, and it's like to upgrade them to, if they do that, upgrade them straight away. It's kind of like, yeah, fans will be like, yeah, Shuri's Black Panther now, like in the comics, but it's like a casual fan might be like, oh yeah, tune out of that. Like that sort of happened. They know why it happened, but they're like, I'm not really interested in that. Happened way too quickly or whatever. So do you bring in a brand new character? And I feel like it'd be easier to latch onto a new character or because Kevin Feige, the one thing he said is that it will explore Wakanda more. So is there a new person that rises up, or I don't know. I feel like that'd be easier to get behind with your existing supporting cast. I don't know.
My big thing about this movie that I want to see, but I don't know if we will see, is that I want to see Namor come into the MCU, and I want to see a Wakanda versus Atlantis sort of mythology and exploration of those two worlds, and then potentially have conflict between a Black Panther and Namor. I think that'd be really cool. I have no idea if that's the direction they're going in, but I think if they're going to bring Namor into the MCU, that'd be the best time to do it. Is these two hidden worlds that don't really want to be associated with the real world, but they are.
Yeah. But then they also talk about bringing back Michael B. Jordan, and I'm like, I don't know how you do that, but
If they do that, that'd be dumb.
Yeah, I saw something about that too. I really hope they don't.
It's been like a rumor since that movie came out.
I just don't see the purpose, honestly. Even a flashback, I don't see the purpose.
That's what I thought at first, that like possibly a flashback, and I was like, you don't really need to do that though. And then of course, Chadwick passed away, and it like was still being rumored. I was like, well, whose flashback is it going to be now? I mean, like other people saw him, but it wouldn't make sense to delve into their flashback unless we're delving into their story. And
Exactly. Yeah.
as he said, like the only person I can think of where it would make sense is Shuri. But as said, such a side character in the first one, to focus so deeply on her from like the beginning of Black Panther 2 before we see a clear transition of who's going to be the next Black Panther would be quite odd, I think.
Yeah, I remember before Kevin Feige did announce at that Disney investors meeting that they weren't going to recast Chadwick. My big speculation was the actor from Tenet.
John David Washington.
Yeah, I thought he would have been a great choice to take over as Black Panther. I think he would have been a great kind of takeover from Chadwick Boseman.
As soon as he died, I was sort of like, well, T'Challa is out of the question. You can't recast him like that. Just, but
See, the reason I thought they were going to do that is because they've done that previously with War Machine and Hulk.
but I
and
guess
stuff,
it's
so.
a completely different kind of situation.
Yeah.
I agree.
mean,
yeah.
At the time they did those, like Marvel was still like very early, still setting him up.
And they just did it with Ant-Man's daughter. It's like,
That's
one
exactly
one
yeah.
actress was her in Avengers Endgame, the biggest movie of all time, but they're like, recast. But it's like your lead star in a franchise that meant so much to people just passed away from a cancer that he's had for 4 years. It's like, you can't really be like, I don't think any actor would be like, yeah, I'll take on that role. They'd be like, no thanks.
Like, the Hulk, they got away with it because, like there were only 3 films in and, what can you do?
It's
like with Rhodey, again, like he'd only been in 1 film. Again, like that was like their first film. You come back to it later and have a change in character and, like a side character, that's not too big a deal. But yeah, with someone who's, was in quite, a few Marvel films now and became such an
Had a very
important
prominent
character.
role, yeah.
And yeah, to recast him would have been, as you said, John David Washington would have been a brilliant choice. But
even if Kevin Feige was like, we're just going to recast a child, do you want to play it? I'm sure he'd be like, no.
yeah,
No, I'm good.
out of, respect for the legacy that he left for his character,
Yeah.
it'd be almost, I would say, borders on disrespect, maybe, to go and recast him.
No, I think it's fair. Again, that was just that would have been my choice if they did decide to recast. I think John David Washington would have been a great choice. But I think that if they are going in a new story direction, then I think that's fine. It just depends on how integral T'Challa was to the Black Panther sequel.
Well, I think it was like that. They've just chucked out the old script pretty much because, I mean, it was Black Panther 2. Now it's going to be like Black Panther reboot kind. Like it's, once again, I have no clue what they're going to do. So it's just see how they handle that one.
Now, another sequel that's coming in a couple of years, Captain Marvel 2. What did you guys think of the first Captain Marvel? Like, did you actually enjoy that movie?
I'm just going to sound really sexist on this podcast, but I'm not.
I can confirm Declan is not a sexist.
I also don't like Wonder Woman 1984, but anyway.
Oh, I didn't like that either.
Captain Marvel was Captain Marvel was terrible. It was really
Really?
bad.
Because I quite enjoyed it for what it was.
Okay, it wasn't really. It was just meh. It was so meh. And by that point, you're in between Infinity War, Endgame, and you're just getting meh. You've had Black Panther, Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp was kind of meh as well.
That was, I feel like it was designed that way. Not to be met, but like as in
Yeah.
it was like just a fun side mission sort of thing.
But it was never really overly hyped that much. It was just sort of like, whatever.
The
Ant-Man and
biggest
Wasp.
standout about that movie is the end credit scene, so.
Exactly. We've already had Ant-Man 1. It's just like, okay, Ant-Man 2, whatever. Where it's like, oh my god, Marvel's first female solo. Oh my god, new character. And it's like, and it's so meh. Like not even Brie Larson herself or anything. Just the movie, the directing, the cinematography.
That's why I
the
feel like they got new
special
directors
effects,
for the
the
sequel.
lighting. It was so crap.
Yeah, I realized that when they announced that the sequel was directed by a new person, I was like, oh, okay,
I was like,
that's interesting.
thank God.
Because I agree. I feel like the first one, I enjoyed it for what it was, but like if I looked at my ranking, it does rank towards the bottom. So, are you
Yeah,
the same,
so
Aiden?
Yeah, no, I was very in the middle. Like, I enjoyed it. I would say it was fun to watch, but like, I didn't particularly hate it. I didn't particularly love it. It was, yeah.
Yep. So Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. We've mentioned that a few times now. So, what do you guys think is, because obviously Kang is confirmed as the main bad guy, but like, is this movie going to be like, again, very huge in scale, like Doctor Strange might be, or is it going to be
It
a lot
might be.
more
It
small
might
scale,
be
which
one-
the two first have been?
Yeah, or it might. Well, I'm annoyed that Peyton Reed's directing it, but anyway, I don't like Peyton Reed.
But that Mandalorian finale, though. Let's not go into that. But anyway,
Anyway.
We'll be here for hours if we start talking about the Mandalorian.
yeah.
He's just such a boring director. Like, Ant-Man 1 was really good, but half that movie was Edgar Wright because it was already planned for years. And then Ant-Man 2 was all Peyton Reed, and it was so boring. And it was, I don't know. That's just me.
That's
So to
fair.
hear he was coming back for the third one, I was like,
Well, it's funny you say that about Peyton Reed because I had that exact sort of expression when I heard John Watts was coming back for the third Spider-Man movie.
I love John Watts, though. I think he's great.
I-
I actually wasn't the biggest fan of Homecoming.
Oh, really?
I really love Far From Home. I thought he went from like just sort of meh to like elevated
Okay.
massively. I thought Far From Home was amazing.
Interesting.
Story-wise, special effects-wise, direction, I thought it was great.
I prefer Homecoming to Far From Home though. I don't know.
lot of
There's something
people
about the
do.
first one that I thought was just much more Spidey feeling than the second one. Not that I disliked Far From Home. I really
Yeah, I
enjoyed that.
like them both.
Like me and Aiden, we went and saw that for the first time together.
Yeah.
And I remember at the end of that movie when Joe Jonas shows up, we were both like, "Oh my god," we were freaking out. So, but
That was such a good scene.
yes, it was. But yeah, what do you think about?
I would say that I agree with Declan half. Like, I didn't dislike Homecoming or, enjoy it a great deal less than Far From Home, but I would agree that there was a certain step up between Homecoming and Far From Home. But I also agree with you in the sense that Homecoming was a much more grounded, like, Spider-Man story, whereas Far From Home was obviously, like, as Spider-Man himself said, this is
An Avengers
big
level
stuff.
threat,
This
yeah.
is
I can respect how Spider-Man fans don't like what the MCU is sort of doing with Spider-Man, how he's not really, he doesn't have the Uncle Ben aspect. He's really Iron Man's protege, all that stuff. I can understand that, but I thought it was done really well in Far From Home.
I might be wrong in this assumption, but I think a lot of people feel that way because they grew up with the Sam Raimi movies.
Exactly, and I can
Because
completely
Spider-Man
understand
was
it.
very much Spider-Man,
Yeah.
whereas this is. They said as a joke in Civil War, but like he is kind of Spider-Boy in a lot of sense because he is still in high school, whereas Tobey Maguire was just out of high school, in college, and then was basically an adult. The actor basically was an adult.
Yeah.
So that whole
He
idea of
was
him being a
30
high
when he
schooler
did
was
those
like,
films,
what?
wasn't he?
Yeah, so like I feel like that might just be a lot of our generation who grew up with the Sam Raimi movies being like, it's not like this, it's wrong. But like if you watch any of the Spider-Man cartoons, like I just recently went through the Spectacular Spider-Man, which was on Netflix, and that show is very much so like teen drama, fun Spider-Man quirks, and then dealing with the villains on a weekly basis. But like the thing with Spider-Man in the MCU, and I feel like this is a good thing. This is just my opinion, but I feel like them leaning so heavily into the MCU and relying on that to help elevate Spider-Man, I think is a good thing because I feel like it distinguishes him from the other Spider-Man franchises that we've got. So
I didn't really have obviously I loved the original Spider-Man trilogy. I thought it was great. But watching the new Spider-Man introduced, I didn't have any of the it's not like this, so I don't like it mentality. The only thing I was opposed to at first, but grew to like, was the whole his suit was Iron Man gave him that suit and he built it for him. And then in Homecoming, I didn't like this aspect of it at first, but I understand why they did it now. The whole is it Karen his AI is?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I didn't like that
I think I
at
know what you're
first.
talking about. Yeah,
I'm not
And
the biggest
yeah,
fan.
I think we've had this discussion before, but yeah, no, because obviously in the comics, he talks out loud to himself a lot, and in the comics to read, that's great, but it might have come off a little awkward if he just said these random things to himself at random points during the film. So they gave him this AI that he could talk to. So a lot of those weird quips or just sarcastic jokes that he makes during fights or just during stuff that he's doing makes a lot more sense.
No, I echo those sentiments, and I was disappointed when she didn't appear in Far From Home. I was like, where is the AI
I was
voice?
glad.
Yeah,
I
no,
was like,
they got rid of her after Homecoming. We didn't see that again, really.
I wonder if they'll continue with that because, like you said, I thought that was genius the way they did that. So he could kind of have these thought bubbles and make it work for live action. Because you can do that in cartoon and animation stuff, and obviously comics. It works so much better in that art form. Whereas cinema, it's very much so awkward to talk to yourself. So again, I echo all those sentiments. I thought that was genius.
Well,
but-
see, I mean, in Infinity War and Endgame, we still saw him, make those quips and that during battle, and obviously, Karen wasn't. I can't remember if Karen spoke at all during those two films.
she didn't, but I
It's like-
assume she still would have been there because it was those old suits.
Yeah, no, because I mean, in Endgame, he tells the suit activate instant kill. So
Exactly.
there's something there.
Yep.
And that seemed to work because they'd already established that he will make jokes and quips during while he's doing stuff. So, and then I mean, Far From Home, it worked. I don't think obviously there was didn't speak to Karen at all. So, you know, like, you notice there's less of it, but I don't think anyone was, like, confused or it felt out of place whenever he would say things. So
Yep.
whether it was just a one-time setup to establish that that's something he's going to do, or if they do bring it back, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, but back to Peyton Reed, which is what started that. I'm still keen for Ant-Man and the Wasp 3. I mean, Kang, I like Ant-Man and the Wasp. It'll be cool to see, what's her name, Janet Van Dyne. It'll be cool to see her. I just hope Peyton Reed can elevate as a superhero film director just a bit more.
I think that's
my
a very
my
fair
only
criticism.
concern is that, yeah, how John Watts elevated from Homecoming to Far From Home. We didn't see that from Ant-Man to Ant-Man and the Wasp, so hopefully he might elevate with Quantumania. That's
Yeah.
my only concern with that one.
I agree. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Now, do we think... I think we talked about this earlier, but like, do we think that Thor is going to show up in this movie, or do you think they're going to show up in his movie?
Oh, well, it's confirmed.
Or is it going to be both?
It's confirmed that they're going to be in his movie.
Okay.
So that's a thing. And I'm curious whether we'll see Bro Thor, Fat Thor in at the start of Love and Thunder.
I hope. So if in Love and Thunder, I hope that Thor goes through like a Rocky montage of getting back in shape. If they don't do like, could you imagine Taika's version of that?
Star-Lord, yeah.
That would be the coolest shit I have
Yeah.
ever seen.
Because
Oh,
I think it'd be
that'd be
kind
so
of
good.
jarring if you just back to Chris Hemsworth looking all amazing. But
again, this could not happen at all. But you know how Star-Lord has like the Zoom or whatever, the Zoom, the little iPod
Oh, yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Like if they have just like the Rocky soundtrack on that or something
The
ridiculous,
Walkman, yeah.
and they just play it and they just go through a montage. Oh, that would be so incredible. I would jump in joy.
Yeah.
I'm
Jump for
certainly
joy.
expecting to see something like that. That would be brilliant.
Yeah, I think that'd be really fun if they did that in either whether it is a Thor movie or the Guardians movie.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to assume that like, the third Guardians film will deal with Adam Warlock and
Yeah, I
that
think-
aspect.
I feel like Taika's going to handle what happened following after Endgame, seeing that movie's coming first, because the Guardians 3 script was like locked back before
Years
Infinity
ago.
War and
Yeah.
Endgame. Like James Gunn did that ages ago. But Guardians 3 was meant to come out last year. It was meant to be one of the first Phase 4 movies in 2020. So, they were meant to start filming in like 2019, and then all of his stuff happened. So, yeah, I think he said that he has made a few little changes over time, but I mean, if he's going to be sticking to what he would have written in like 2017, 2018, then it would be Adam Warlock and sort of continuing that story arc.
No, I agree.
But then will Thor: Love and Thunder handle Gamora from 2014, or will Guardians 3
I feel like that's a
handle that?
Guardians 3 thing.
I hope it
Yeah.
is a Guardians 3 thing.
I just
Yeah.
feel like the idea of restarting their relationship at different points where Star-Lord is obviously so clearly on board with Gamora, and you've done all this setup with Gamora to finally get her to that stage, and then to reset her, I think is going to lead to lots of comedy. So I'm excited to see that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Now, this is a movie that they announced way back at San Diego Comic-Con a couple years ago, Blade, with Mahershala Ali. That's expert casting, and the story behind how he got the role is amazing.
Yeah. Didn't you just call up Falcon? Was like,
Dude, no,
"I wanna
exactly,
play
yeah.
Blade."
No, it was after when he won the Oscar for Green Book. It was like a couple days or weeks later. He rang up Marvel Studios or Kevin Feige or whatever and was like, hey, can we have a meeting? And Kevin Feige's like, Mahershala Ali wants a meeting with us? Okay. And then he came in to the office and was like, I want to be Blade. And Kevin Feige's like, okay. And that's how we got a Blade movie. That is the
Yeah.
coolest story. Just to have that much like A-list level as an
Yeah.
actor, just be like, I want a movie, I want to play this character, make it happen, and then the studio be like, okay. Like that's so cool to me, and I think he'll knock it out of the park. But me personally, I have never been a huge fan of vampire mythology. That's just not something that I gravitate towards. So that aspect of this movie and that's mythology I am not super keen for. But again, Mahershala Ali is what is drawing my focus.
Yeah. I haven't seen any of the Wesley Snipes Blade
I haven't either,
movies,
no.
So I don't really have any attachment to Blade. I'm cute. Mahershala Ali is a good actor. I hope they get a good director. I'm sure could be a fun movie. I wonder if it'll be really dark, or MA rated like the Wesley Snipes ones. Yeah, well, they haven't got I think they might have a writer, but they don't have a director.
No.
It's rumored to be coming out in between Black Panther 2 and Captain Marvel 2, which would be October next year. So they probably want to get a crack along. But yeah, it's I'm sort of withholding my opinion until I see who the director is and how it sort of comes together, what other actors join the cast and that. Because at the moment it's just Mahershala Ali as Blade in a movie eventually. Like,
Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
Are you the same boat?
I'm pretty sure I did see one of the old ones with Wesley Snipes, but that would have been ages ago now, so I barely remember any of it. But like Blade's always someone I've seen as like a cool character, but I also share your notion of like being like the whole like vampire mythology. Like as cool as a character as I've thought Blade was, it just like you look at everything else Marvel has done and you go like vampires and stuff. It's a bit. I don't want to say far-fetched because, you know, like they do aliens in outer space and like all that other stuff and like, you know, Doctor Strange with magic. It just seems out of place almost.
I agree.
Almost seems like a downgrade. Like we've seen vampire action movies with like Underworld and like garbage B-grade action movies like those, and it's like, does the MCU really want to step into that sort of like you as we were talking about before, like the 4 sort of arcs they're going, and it's like I feel like Blade wasn't really on Kevin
100% wasn't in their plans at all.
Like maybe in 10 years it was in his plans, but like it's sort of like just jumped in, and it's like, how does it fit into the plan? Because it's such a different corner of.
I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm worried about how they'll handle it. They've like Marvel's more than proved they know how to handle the content they produce. It's just the introduction of it in general I'm unsure of, because like I'm sure it'll be a brilliant film, brilliant character, and obviously like the whole like vampire mythology will be like portrayed and demonstrated to the audience in a way where we're like, okay, this makes sense, this is cool, but like as I said, like standing next to all the other content Marvel's shown us and has made, it just seems out of place.
Yeah.
The extent of my knowledge about Blade is from the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, and I really enjoyed that, and what they did with Blade and that was interesting, but again, I don't know, vampires aren't my thing.
Yeah.
But we'll see how they do it. Now, again, let's rapid fire through some of these because there's a lot of them, and I don't think we need to deep dive into too many of them. But Moon Knight, yes or no?
Isaac, keen. Ethan Hawke's the villain, keen.
Yeah, this is a character that I have heard about for a long time, and again, I think has lots of good story real estate. Hopefully they get a good character to play him. So, I mean, a good actor to play him. That's what I meant to say.
Well, I've got Oscar Isaac as Moon Knight.
I think that's still rumored. I don't think that's confirmed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have announced that at the Disney investors
I don't
meeting.
think it was done by them, but there have been more reports afterwards saying that he has signed.
I thought it was. Just
I haven't heard
confirmed,
those same reports,
yeah.
but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm keen. So.
Secret Invasion. Now, that's a TV show with Sam Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah.
Again, when this was announced, I was like, that sounds like an Avengers level movie.
Exactly.
So
I
why
thought
is
the
it
next
Disney
Avenger
Plus?
movie was going to be like Avengers Secret Invasion, but now it's just and the logo looks really kiddie. Like, I don't know, I was a bit taken off guard by that. I was like, oh.
I feel like this show, and again, I could be wrong. I feel like they're just doing this because Sam Jackson's still around and they want to keep him around doing Nick Fury things. Because like I feel like his inclusion in Far From Home made sense, but it was like out of all the characters, you had to pick Nick Fury. But you know, I still think he's a cool character, and I'm grateful that he's coming back. But again, this is a weird timing and a weird type of show to have with this comic story that everyone's so familiar with.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, mostly just curious.
Ironheart. I have no idea why this is a thing.
I know I'm jumping the gun. You'll probably say Armor Wars next. Why didn't they just merge Ironheart and Armor Wars into one
agree.
story? So you have, what's her name, Riri Williams or something? That's the Ironheart. Why don't you have her, Rhodey, Sam Rockwell, from like just the sort of the Iron Man characters all
In a show together.
It'd be so much more interesting than having her own one and then their own one. It's like, just join them together.
I just don't understand why Ironheart needs to exist. We've done so much Iron Man stuff. Just we've still got War Machine, who everyone loves. Just make him the main if you want to go down that route.
Exactly.
I'm not a fan of this at all.
Spider-Man's basically your kid Iron Man. You've still got the kid from Iron Man 3, and then you're having another Iron Kid. It's like...
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this.
Just make her a side character in Armor Wars, or, you know, combine those shows. I think that's a terrible idea. Having
Yeah, I
two
would
separate.
completely agree with the both of you there. A, I don't think we need it, and B, if we are going to do it, why not merge the two? It would make a lot more sense.
Because Armor Wars I am excited for, just because I love Don Cheadle as War Machine. I just love that character so much. So to see him get his own show, I'm excited for that. But again, it also depends on the story that they tell, because again, if they bring back Sam Rockwell and Hammer Industries and stuff, I think that'd be cool, because obviously we haven't explored that since Iron Man 2, which was his first movie. So we'll see.
I don't think War Machine's that much of an interesting character, so I think it would have been cool to have develop him more and also introduce a new fan favorite character from the comics. They could have really bounced off each other well, and just but having their own separate shows, I think they won't be very. They'll feel kind of like the Hawkeye series, where it's just like, a character I know and no real consequence to anything that's really happening. It's just
It'll be cool, sure, but ultimately no weight.
yeah, exactly. Whereas if they combine it, it's like, okay, this feels like a bit more like an event.
Now, I'm going to combine these two because they're very similar. So there's a Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, and then an I Am Groot series. I think these are both just superfluous content for Disney Plus.
The I Am Groot one, whatever. That's for
I
kids.
I think what that show will be is what I Am Forky is on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
It's just like a thing for kids that goes for like 5 minutes. You turn your brain off and you watch it, or you just put it on for kids.
Like I'm not even gonna. I saw that announced. I'm like, okay, well, that's not for me. Like I'm not even gonna pay attention to any news from that. The holiday special, apparently they're meant to, when they start filming Guardians 3, they'll film the holiday special thing first.
That's
so it'll
correct,
come out
yeah.
before. So I don't know. I guess it'll be a fun thing to put on Disney Plus. The story weight of it, I don't know, probably minimal.
Well, it's Baby Groot as well, so I feel like, you can only do so much with Baby Groot. But I could be wrong. It could be awesome, and we're all wrong. So, now that's the extent of everything that's coming out. However, there's one thing we haven't talked about, and it is the coolest thing that I'm so excited that they're doing. And Declan looks puzzled because he doesn't know what it is, and I'm very disappointed. Fantastic Four.
Ah, yes.
Dude, are we not keen for Fantastic Four?
Directed by John Watts.
Well, that's yes and no. When they announced that he was directing it, I was like, ugh, why
I
him?
was excited because Peyton Reed was campaigning hardcore for that, and I was like, please no.
See,
Don't get the most boring director in a human history. Anyway,
regardless, whoever's directing it, it doesn't really matter, because Fantastic Four is coming to the MCU, and hopefully it's amazing, because those characters deserve justice.
third time lucky.
Yes, third time lucky indeed.
I certainly hope so. As excited as I am that they're doing it, and they're in a position to do it so much more properly than previously, it would be great to see. But I can't see it going wrong at all. But just like with the last two times, I have to be skeptical.
This is my sort. If you humor me here, this is what I hope that they do. Is I hope that Reed Richards and like all the characters. I hope this movie starts in like the 50s or 60s. I hope this movie starts then, and we basically get these characters working on this experiment, and then they have the origin story like we know. They go into space, and then they somehow get their powers or whatnot. My hope with that is that they start in the 50s, they do that, they go into space, get their powers, and then they somehow get locked into like the negative zone or whatever it's called. And then we come back all these decades later, and then they somehow pop out, and then they return back to Earth.
Ant-Man and the Wasp 3 introduce them.
Potentially. But like, I hope that they have that classic origin story like they did in the comics, and set it back in like the 50s or whatnot, because then you have that cool kind of like olden day vibes with these characters, and then you bring them to the future, and then they have to deal with all this modern
doing
stuff.
Captain America again.
Well, they could do it differently. That Captain America was very much so like a man out of time, whereas these guys, I feel like you can bring them into the future, and like Reed Richards, who was the smartest man living back then, comes into the future and is like the next Tony Stark sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I reckon they'll just probably make them like... What Kevin Feige seems to do is just their existing origin story, but just with the current MCU twist. So I reckon they'll just go into space as sword agents or something. They'll just be part of that crew. This thing will happen, and then Feige likes to keep it simple with origin sort of stuff, and I feel like he'll just make them sword agents or something. Maybe tease it in Secret Invasion with Nick Fury in that, because I feel like that's when we'll get to see more of Sword.
Yeah, true.
That's my guess. I think that'd be cool, but I think that'll just be.
I just want to see a classic Fantastic Four origin story done right, and whether it's in the past or the present, I think they'll do it right. But just me personally, I want to see something a bit more retro with the Fantastic Four, and then bring them to the future and let them do cool shit. So, what do you reckon?
I would say I agree with you there. I would love to see the classic origin story, but I think I do agree with Declan in that it'll probably just be kept simple and with like the bigger, more interesting stuff to come later in their story.
I'm curious to see how they handle Doctor Doom in this one. Like, will he have Latveria, and like, will he do another hidden country type thing? Maybe that could be a whole different thing. They're also part of Latveria, and I don't know, like, they could take a few different routes just to differentiate it from the
Those
two
other
other
movies?
versions.
Yeah.
But then also do their MCU twist. It could be cool. It could be.
I think, yeah, there's so much potential that they can do now that we have this very well-established MCU, like this whole universe that we have that everyone knows so well. I think to inject the Fantastic Four somewhere in there, I think is going to be really cool. And I think that they're going to do it right, but hopefully it's in a way that's unique and also entertaining for people who love the Fantastic Four of the olden days, and then after those two franchises destroyed those characters so terribly. Now, we could talk about mutants and the X-Men, but I don't think there's much point because I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. With all the announcements that Marvel has made with Phase 4, Phase 5, nothing in there is obvious mutant and X-Men stuff. So I think my theory is that this sort of wave of Marvel is all going to be Avengers-centric, and then in like another 10 years' time, when they're starting to get burnt out with all these characters, they're going to be like, all right, let's flip the switch, and now we've got 10, 20 more years worth of content with mutants. That's my theory.
Yeah.
Because the Marvel Comics universe is so vast. They've got so many opportunities, and I feel like the X-Men is a great way to expand on that. I don't think they need to jump the gun on it, honestly.
The biggest problem that Kevin Feige's probably figuring out, if he's probably figured it out already, but it's like, if the X-Men do exist in the MCU as we know, why haven't they shown up once to help? Like, that's going to be the question every time a new existing hero shows up. It's like, where were you in Endgame? Where were you in Infinity War? Where were you Age of Ultron? Where were you battling New York? Like,
my solution to that is you've got to keep the amount of mutants small. You've got to keep it to like the main ones, and you've got to make it so that Xavier is like, yes, there's super people around, but like, we need to keep ourselves secret. If you have only a small amount of mutants actually out there, I think that's far more realistic, as opposed to the entire planet or America or whatever has mutants everywhere and just nobody knew about it. Because that's what they tried to do with Inhumans in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it was like, wait, so there's all these Inhumans around, but like they're only showing up with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. crew. It's like, that was a bit weird.
Quickly, has anyone seen the Inhumans TV series?
I did not, because I heard it was terrible. So I was like, I'll skip that one, thank you.
It was so bad.
But yeah, I just...
Worse than Iron Fist.
I feel like the mutants, again, so much potential there, and they don't need to rush into it because
Or
there's no
will
need
they
to.
do, like, you know, in the comics, how Magneto has Genosha, the island? For like, will they sort of do another Black Panther thing where they've been hiding in this? Because they didn't really do that in the Fox movies, and
Yeah,
to
they could do
differentiate
that.
them, Magneto's way more sort of
Prominent.
Or will they tie Doctor Doom and Magneto with like having their own? I don't know. There's lots of possibilities. It's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting future. And whilst I consider myself a huge Marvel fan, which I assume you both do as well, like I feel like it's safe to assume that everything that's coming out will be of high quality. It's just whether or not they can keep it at a level where everyone is still entertained and finds it worthwhile. And I think that's the most important thing, because Disney has Marvel and they don't have a lot of content for their streaming service. I feel like they're just going balls deep in Marvel and Star Wars and being like, let's just get as many shows and movies and stuff on this service so that people come and pay money for it. And to me, I don't like that at all with Star Wars because I feel like Star Wars is no longer special. But that's just something I, as a fan, have to get over because Disney owns it. And Marvel, I just don't want to see a drop in quality. I am more focused on quality over quantity. So I don't know if you guys feel the same or...
Yeah, it'll be, I'll spend a lot of money on these first few shows, but then like when you get to Ironheart, is it just going to be some small scale drama with she gets a suit? I don't know. It's just, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, as great as it would be to see such a large amount of brilliant Marvel content coming out, I think it's important that like A, that it's made well, but B, that it stays relevant.
Because Kevin Feige said the idea is that they can just jump in between movies and Disney Plus, and it's like
it'll be very seamless.
If they start just churning out Disney Plus, Disney higher up will be like, this is too expensive, slicing little budgets off all of them, and then it's like, now you can't cross between movies and TV shows because there's
a drop in quality.
They look very different now. I don't know. Yeah, how they keep the balance and how they keep casual fans and oversaturation of just story. Like, they could release 10 shows a year and we'd watch them, no fuss. But it's like,
are you going to bring that casual person in?
And how important is each story? Because every movie is important, but is every TV show going to be important? And how do we differentiate that?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the direction that they go with it because, yeah, I feel like there's lots of potential, but again, they've got to make sure that they're hitting their strides at every step of the way. And I guess what are the most anticipated shows that you guys have out of everything that's kind of been announced and all the movies and shows that's coming out Phase 4, Phase 5? What's like the ones that stand out to you the most and that you're most looking forward to?
I know I said Falcon and Winter Soldier looks generic, but I am very keen for that just because it's existing characters who I like. Moon Knight, definitely, and She-Hulk. They're probably my big three. WandaVision's already happening, so I'm just excluding that.
Of course, yeah.
But those are probably my big three.
Yeah, no, I'd have to say the same as Declan there. And again, like, would have included WandaVision, but obviously that's now out and we're well into watching it. But yeah, Loki, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Moon Knight, yeah.
The ones I'm most looking forward to are Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. That's one thing that's probably up the top of my list. WandaVision, again, would have also been up there, but that's we're currently experiencing that. So yeah, Doctor Strange, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and What If. They're my three most anticipated ones. And I'm only excited for What If only because I just want to see the different directions that they take those characters in those stories. And I just want to see something different.
Movie-wise, definitely keen for Spider-Man 3, Doctor Strange, and probably Thor, Love and Thunder.
Yeah, film-wise, I'd say the same. Thor, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man 3. They're probably going to be the biggest and most engaging for those of us who are invested in like Marvel's comics and
I'm very curious about Eternals though. That's sort of like a wild card where I'm like, that could be like, damn, that was cool.
Can go one of two ways.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Marvel is going into a direction that there's so much content coming out. I know we're all very excited for it, but if we have a quick reflection on what we've seen thus far with the Infinity Saga, why do you think that Marvel has been so successful with everything that they've done thus far? And why do you think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is so good and why it is so effective at what it does?
Kevin Feige.
It's a great answer.
See other franchises. Kathleen Kennedy can't keep her shit together. DC, they can't lock down any producers. Kevin Feige. Yes, all these like Taika Waititi, like all these directors do input so much into it. Not Peyton Reed.
I love how we just have this underlining hatred for him now.
It's very subtle.
Very indeed.
Like these directors do have such strong input. Like Jon Favreau set the tone. Like
of course, yeah.
Kevin Feige could have never done that. Like he's not a director. But he does keep the ship in order. He's like, yes, Taika Waititi, do whatever you want, but you have to at least do this. And Taika Waititi's probably like, oh, and I'll do this. And Kevin, no, you can't do that because that won't. And Taika Waititi's probably like, okay, you need that head of the ship. He's like, yeah, you can play around in the room how you like, but you gotta at least do this and this and not do that. And that's what other franchises don't have.
Yeah, I think one of the most important parts of what's made them so successful is I mean, right from when they started with Iron Man, they made a story that, wasn't like too heavily based off the comics. You didn't have to go and read them to be able to, go and watch, understand, and enjoy Iron Man. But for those who had, it was like still something that was like, it was cool to watch. You're like, okay, I can see where they're going with this. Is going to be a good film. And those who, had nothing, they went and watched it, and it's like, okay, this was a good film. And so like right early, they established it was something that, could attract people who had been reading the comics and been invested for a while, but still build an entirely new fan base who are becoming engaged with their content after this first film. So I think, like, just making the stories in the way they did, where they could, not only invite the fan base they already had, but continue to make an even larger and new one, so that, they'd continue to make films and more people would be interested, is something that helped them, gain the success they did.
Yeah, I feel that's such an important part, and one of the reasons why I think they're so successful is because they have people who actually care about the stories they're telling, and they know the mythology, they know the history, they know why these characters are so important and why people identify with them. And to me, like, yes, these are superhero movies, and so many people can be like, oh, they're just fun action movies, but like, I disagree with that, because when you look at Avengers Endgame and the emotional impact that had on pop culture, not only with Iron Man's death, but with that scene when Cap lists Mjolnir, and just like, even me personally, like, I was crying for like an hour of that movie just because there was so much going on. I was just tears of joy, tears of sadness, all of it, the full spectrum. And I feel like that's why they're so successful, is because they really care about the characters and they put it on screen in a way that is faithful to the comics whilst being contemporary and also making sense for the world that we live in. And I feel like, a lot of people can discard these and just say, oh, they're just fun movies. But like, again, I feel like they're telling a story that really makes a lot of people, that's why people go to the theater, go to see movies, because they want to be entertained. But a key part of entertainment is having good characters and a good story. And I feel like the Infinity Saga did that perfectly. They had a few hiccups here and there, but for the most part, their overarching story was of the highest quality. And I think that's why they are the most successful company in cinema, is because they have got this such great care, and Kevin Feige's leading that ship, like you said. No, I agree totally with that perspective, that when you have someone who's leading the ship, everyone's going to file suit, and when everyone goes on the same vision, then it's great stuff.
And as you said, as a fan, it's particularly special for us when we, go and see these films that are being made by people who care and are invested in these characters just as much as we are.
That's why it annoys me when Sony keeps fucking around with Spider-Man. Fucking piss. I despise Sony because they keep messing with Spider-Man in ways I don't like. So
and then their
anyway.
whole side universe, Venom, Morbius.
Oh,
Kraven
don't
the
even get me
Hunter.
started. We'll be here for another
certainly
hour.
do not have time for that.
Declan, Aidan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking everything Marvel. I really appreciate it. This is obviously something that we've talked about previously, and we've always had a good time doing it, so I appreciate you coming onto the hot mics and doing it live. So
Thanks for the
I
invite.
really appreciate
Pleasure.
it. Now, obviously, those who are listening at home, obviously, I assume if you're listening to this stage, you're definitely a fan of Marvel. Hopefully, you guys are excited just as much as we are for all the new Marvel content that's coming out. I know there's going to be lots of good stuff, and hopefully the quality is high for all of it, but we will soon find out. WandaVision is happening right now. Hopefully, that finishes with a bang. And again, thank you very much for listening. If you're listening on an audio form, and if you're watching this on YouTube, I also really appreciate it. And make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are new around here, and I will catch you in another time.